Hello, my name is Paul Brinkhurst, and this is an ESAT training video for site managers. In this video, we're going to be looking at how site managers set up programs, including adding staff and program skills. And we're going to look at how you can use some control panels specifically designed for site managers in order to help you manage the site. We'll also look at the complete note list. So let's get started. First of all, I'm logged in as a site manager, and you can tell this because you can see the manage staff, manage programs, and complete note list action items in the menu. So let's just start with managing staff. So this is where you add all the people who are part of the ESAT teams, teachers, coaches, anybody who's going to be interacting with your learners. Using this page is very simple. You add a username and a password for the account, the full name of the staff member, and their email address. You then have to decide whether they are staff, counselor, site manager, or external assessor status. A quick review. Staff people are interacting with the learners, but they have no case management responsibility. So this means that they enter observations and they participate in the staff assessment and consensus process. They do not have to create time points, and they do not have to build a really in-depth, detailed understanding of the learners. The feedback they provide is still important, though. When they make an observation, there should be what we call touch point feedback, momentary, brief, just an indicator that you saw the behavior that you are going to then enter into ESAT. It could be as little as eye contact. You also, as a staff member, play a role in reinforcing behaviors that you want and trying to oppose behaviors that you don't want. So once somebody has had a session with their counselor and they have a plan that they're using to try and modify behaviors, as a staff member, you'll be aware of the plan and you will reinforce the things that the person is trying to change. Okay, so that's the staff person. The counselor, of course, or the case manager, or if you prefer the coach, this person is the case manager. They control the time points, they control when the assessments take place, they run the consensus meetings and so forth. So the counselor is the key active person who's engaging most with the learner. Site manager, that would be in case you want to have a second site manager in your site, which is certainly possible. I'd avoid having more than two. And then last, the external assessor. This is a variant of the staff person, same responsibilities, but they are outside your organization. So the best example might be an employer who's taking one of the students on a co-op or a placement. The difference is that an external assessor, when they put a note in the system, will not see all the other notes from the other members of the team. They'll only see their own notes. Okay, so the information they have is limited. Once you create the account, that person's name will appear down here in the appropriate column, and you'll be able to see whether you've got everybody that you need. A couple of extra things. You can highlight and then archive selected accounts. This should be done if somebody leaves your organization, and it should be the last thing that you do. So in other words, if a counselor leaves your organization, you should make sure that their students are reassigned to somebody else, and then you can archive them. We also have a little button down here that was added because often staff members become counselors. So this button will allow you to automatically convert a staff member to a counselor without having to change their status. If you need to change their status, say you wanted to go from counselor to staff or something like that, contact us. At the moment, that is not an automated feature. The list of archived staff is accessed up here. You click on that link, here are all the archived staff. Okay, and you can, down at the bottom, restore selected accounts. When you restore the selected account, it sets a new password, and there's a message that comes up to tell you that. Okay, we can show you. Restored users will have the password blue sky. Okay, so you'll have to tell the person that they have that password, and then they will modify their password using their edit account button up here. So that is the manage staff link. Just make sure you stay on top of managing your staff. If somebody leaves the program, make sure that you do archive them. Okay, the next thing you have to do is manage your programs. If we click on Manage Programs, you will see a list of your programs that you currently have. You can highlight those and delete them as necessary. Make sure you don't delete a program which is actively being used, meaning that there are open time points for it. If you want to add a program, it's very straightforward. You click Add a Program, you put in a title, and you select which skills that you want. The only skills that will appear here are the ones that you have access to. For me, in this demo, I have access to all the skills, so I have a long list. Okay, so you need to have at least 3 and no more than 12. So you just put in the name, select the skills that you want for that particular program, and save. Very straightforward. If you have to change a program, you can click on the little pen here, and that will open up the discussion box, and you can modify this. Note, if you have a program with a learner that has an active time point in it, then this is locked. You cannot change the skill set embedded in the program if there's an active time point going on, for obvious reasons. Also, if you do have access to different skill sets, be careful combining them in one program. Just make sure that they're not overlapping in some way. Okay, so that's manage programs. And you will have to make sure that you've got your staff in place and your programs in place before you add any learners to the system. Okay. The complete note list down here is a listing of all the notes for all the learners and your site. Okay, so there's not too many on this particular demo one, but you could have hundreds of notes here. This was added for the purpose of managing data in the organization. Like, for example, if you wanted to know how many first aid course certificates you issued in a year. You can use ESAT to do that. You just have to make sure that every time you issue a certificate, a note is put in the system to indicate that the first aid certificate was issued for that particular learner. What you can then do is go to the complete note list, and under the content block, put in first aid, and it will find all of the notes that were put in for that have those words in it. And you could put other in here if you like to narrow it down to a particular type of note. When you do that, it will list all the notes that have that keyword in it, and then you can just count how many there are. It'll tell you here. So that's what it's for, if you wanted to track any kind of event in that fashion. Okay? So those are the major items that are in the menu related to the site manager. But there are also 2 control panels down here underneath the learner list. The first one is for monitoring how your staff is scoring. So this allows you to look at how the actual staff group are using the system, if you like, and to identify people who might be just scoring in a rather unthinking manner, just giving 3s or something like that. So when you click on it, it brings you to this page. You see the user who made the entry, which will be the staff person's name, the learner being assessed, the time point number, and you can change the column by clicking up here. And say you were worried about how they were doing adaptability. You could select adaptability. You can select any of these, okay? Just go down to the bottom of that window and click Change Columns. And now you can see how all the staff have been scoring adaptability. And you can see that there's a reasonably good range of scores here. If you are concerned about a particular person and their scoring, you could limit this. Let's go and check what is the person called Demo Staff 1. Okay, so there's a range there, and say we were concerned about all of their scores. We wanted to look across the board, or let's just do these 5. So there we go. So now we can see how these scores are going. So, you know, in some cases, some were missed, but there's a full range of scores going on here. So that looks fine. So you could check and see, are they consistently scoring high? Are they consistently scoring low? Or are they not scoring in a way that indicates some careful consideration? So that's one control panel you can use for looking behind the scenes. And this next one is particularly important. This was added as a shortcut for helping you make adjustments to the learner staff assessments. Assignments as you go. So if a member of staff leaves or a new member of staff arrives, you need to adjust so that they're added to the students or taken off the students when that happens. So this page will list all of the learners in your system. And here, in this case, we only have 2. And you can go in one by one and you can change their name, their program name, their assigned counselor, or the staff who can see the information, the staff on the team, by just clicking on the pen and making the adjustment, okay? And when you're finished making the adjustment, I'm not going to change this one, we're just going to click on the check mark, and that will make the change, okay? It's likewise in any of these. Of course, changing the program for a student, you've got to be careful. Don't change the program while they have an open time point. So you can change all of it that way, but we've also added a tool here for changing it for a group very quickly. So in this case, what you can do is you can search, say you needed to add a new staff member to a program. So you would go into the manage staff, first of all, and create the account for that manager, for that new staff member. You would then come to this control panel, you'd type in the name of the program right here, and that would allow you to narrow the list down to just those students in that program. You then can select all the students right here, okay? And then you come up to this tool up here. Go down until you find the new member of staff, let's say here, and then you can select either of these buttons and then apply. The first one will add the staff to the selected learners for you, just as a staff member. This one removes the person. If you've already assigned them to that group, but you want to remove them because they're leaving, that you choose this button. And this one assigns the staff as a counselor to the selected learners. So in that case, you would make sure that the person is has a counselor type of account. Okay, so that's all you have to do. Add the staff, apply, staff added, and there they are. So this, you can do a whole bunch of people at the same time, and that saves a lot of time. Let's just remove them now. So there's Wilma. Now I'm going to remove, and that's done. Okay, so if you had a counselor who was leaving your organization, the first thing, and a new counselor coming in, the first thing you do is you'd create the new account for that counselor, for the new counselor. You would then come to this control panel, find all the people that are going to be linked to that new counselor. How would you do that? Well, what you'd probably do is you'd use this button here, this box, to find all the students linked to the old counselor. So you put the old counselor's name in here, do the search. Once you've got them, select them all. You would then be able to assign the new learner as counselor. So it would switch it for you. And once that's done, you would be able to remove the old counselor from the system by archiving them. Okay? If you have questions the first time you're doing that, please contact me at the contact information that you have. And I think that's it for the site manager. Once you've got all those things set up, then normally you send the list of learners to the counselors who are assigned to them, and they will enter those into the system for you, and away you go. And I think that's all we need to say for the site managers.